Hello, everyone. This is Everything Under the Sun. My name is Ty, and I'm happy to welcome my very first guest to the show. This is someone that I met during my time in my graduate program. We studied different things. We were in the same program. She studied environmental science and management, and we met through mutual friends, and we've been connected since. This person has skills far beyond that what she studied, and has aspirations that kind of go to far places. So I am happy to welcome my guest, Ali Lobo.
Yay! Hi!
Hi,
Thanks
welcome,
for
welcome to the
having
show.
me.
Yeah, yeah. Thanks for taking time to be on the show, virtually, of course.
Definitely. I'd make
You know,
time anytime.
well, thank you. I think that that's an amazing thing with technology now. We have the ability to communicate via this way. Just to give an idea of what this situation is looking like for all you listeners out there, we are recording online through a mutual recording program, and then we're doing a Zoom chat as well so that we can see each other. So it's kind of just like the all-encompassing version of being present in the exact same room, but still abiding by social distancing. So
Exactly.
um, about 6 hours of social distancing between us, so that's good.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I don't even know. You're 7 hours away, so this is kind of what
Yeah,
we gotta do.
that's what we got to do.
Yeah.
So uh, the show that the show today we're going to be speaking about today is going to be social media. Sorry, I just heard some like feedback. I heard myself yell in the recording, so I think I just need to not speak as loud. Um, so today we're going to be speaking about social media, and before we kind of get into that, of course, I'm going to kind of just speak about the topics that are going to be going into the box, the new topics that are going to be going to the box this week, and thank you again for those that have sent those topics in, and anyone that has any topics that they want to send in, please feel free to send those in everything.sunpodcast@gmail.com, or you can go to any of the social media pages, which I will plug in at the end of this podcast. But for now, these are amazing topics, and I'm going to share them with you now. So self-care is going to be a great topic that we're going to talk about, and that's something that is so important now, especially in
Now more than ever.
now more than ever in the place that we are in. And I will have a guest on the show for that episode as well when that gets drawn. But it's something so important, and feel free to send any of your self care tips or ideas or things that you do in those emails with the topics or whatever. I always love to hear the ways that people help to take care of themselves, and that's something that's so important for us. The other topic is going to be arts of different kinds. That's like visual arts or music or cinema, like people that are creating things, and that's another great thing I think may come out of this time in quarantine is the ability for people to just be so creative and think about things, if that is kind of where their wavelength is or where their kind of aspirations lie. Um,
Yeah, definitely. With so
there could be
much time at home, what
yeah,
are we
we
gonna
could just
do?
but create, yeah, right.
Yeah.
The other topic is like herbal remedies, herbal medications, like things like cannabis and MDMA and ayahuasca and things that have been recently explored as far as how well they're going to be doing in
Medicine.
in terms of medicine, and if that could be the future of medicine. But I think that's an amazing topic that many people are kind of looking towards, especially as there's so many people that are anti-vaxxing and just so many things that are happening, that I think this is a big topic that a lot of people are taking very seriously and putting into consideration. And the last topic that will be put into the box is privilege, which is an amazing topic that I think we kind of underestimate. We don't really realize different privileges that we have in the place that we are. And I think right now it's kind of more aware that there are certain privileges that like we have, where there are countries and people that are kind of plagued with poverty and famine and can't really escape to a home or social distance in a way that we can, and that in itself is a privilege among dozens and hundreds of others of privileges that we maintain in our daily life. So that's going to be an amazing topic. I think that
Yeah, that's a
um,
great one.
can bring so much out of it. So to get right into the box drawing, gonna shake this box up and get a topic to come out of here.
Drum roll, please.
And we got that. Let's see. The topic for this next week is going to be acknowledging and embracing strengths. I remember when this person sent me this. This was sent by a good friend of mine, and I'm so happy that she sent this to me because I think this is an amazing thing that many of us take for granted or don't even recognize. We have so many strengths that I think too often other people recognize within us that we don't really embrace within ourselves or even acknowledge within ourselves. And
or even see within ourselves.
Exactly,
Yeah,
yeah.
definitely. That's
So,
huge. That's an awesome topic.
it is an amazing topic. So I'm just gonna put this up on the wall, knocking out social media because that is what we're talking about today. Perfect. Great. So yeah, I guess I kind of I don't know. I'm kind of stuck on this idea of the arts and movies topic because I guess there are so many people that are watching things now and creating things and doing things and I guess I kind of start watching this show. Well, it's a show that has been out for a while. It's called Kingdom. Have you seen that, Allie?
Did you say
It's
Kingdom?
Kingdom.
No.
It's like a Korean film. Show, but it's about like zombies and stuff like that. But it's pretty gnarly. But the second season came out recently, so I rewatched the entire first season and the second season, and it's it's actually pretty good. I don't know. I kind of love that kind of stuff, zombies and things. But
Zombies, The Walking Dead. That's a good
yeah,
one.
but this is pretty intense. I love. There's also that film Train to Busan, which is on Netflix. Have you seen that?
Oh, I actually have.
Yeah, I don't know. There's so many great films that are just like I think they're really amazing zombie films that are kind of outside of that kind of classic, group that's on a journey to, nowhere, but like these have like different types of, themes to them, and I think that's really amazing. But
Yeah, if you
and
dive into international films, it's like a whole nother world just because
oh
of
yeah,
like the cultural differences instead of like the Hollywood thing that we're all used to. I think it's like,
exactly.
yeah. I
And
just
I actually
watched,
think that's what's
sorry,
that?
go ahead.
No, no, no. What were you saying?
No, I was just gonna say
So
I just
I feel
watched The
like
Matrix last night.
on the
Oh,
Matrix.
it wasn't last night, it was 2 nights ago.
Yeah.
Which is an awesome one to rewatch if you haven't seen it in a while because Keanu Reeves is awesome and it's funny because there's so much there that you miss when you see it so long ago and then you rewatch it and you're like, "Oh my God, like yes." And it's like always going to be relevant, right? I mean,
You
the
know,
biggest like conspiracy theorists are like all about that movie and even if they're not, it's like tons of people love Matrix and the whole trilogy.
yeah, like Keanu Reeves is kind of a conspiracy theory in a sense. I don't know. I'm gonna have an episode about conspiracy theories. It's gonna be about just like
Ooh, that's a good one.
Illuminati and New World Order and Keanu Reeves
5G?
and aliens and it's just gonna
I
have
guess
all of
5G
them.
is not really an actual
5G.
conspiracy theory, or is it?
I don't know. I was actually just kind of joking about that. Keanu Reeves being a conspiracy. He's just like he does these films. He's like for this recent election or something, people were like, what if he was nominated as like a president or something like that? It's kind of just ridiculous how many people admire him, but he seems like a really
Wow.
great guy, and I've had people that have met him that say like he's super down to earth and super chill. I actually had a fraternity brother that worked uh, at a facility that they were filming John Wick next to, like the second John Wick film, and like actually got to meet Keanu Reeves and like took a picture with him and everything, and said he was like the most laid back guy that like seemed like just a normal guy, but I don't know. Uh, but anyway, I think that's kind of going off the rails a little bit, but
My bad.
as I guess like that's not too going off the rails because as like the topic today is social media, and as we kind of get stuck more in social media because of the circumstances that we're in right now, it makes it a lot more aware that, you know, like we're sharing certain ideas, certain thoughts, certain feelings, and also just like the ways in which we're staying entertained in this time, and a lot of that also is including, you know, the stuff that we're watching. So you know, let me know what you're watching. If you have interests that are like in that kind of horror stuff, you know, like send that to me. Comedy, I love it too. But you know, anything. You know, I always love movie topics, and I think this time now, you know, like maybe we should help each other find some things to watch because, you know, maybe we don't have anything else to do. But uh, yeah, social networks, the social media. This is the place where like all like we're able to connect, you know, and I think that now more than ever we're using these platforms to connect and try to connect in more meaningful ways because it seems to be the only way that we have to do that now. And
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. If it's not face to face, it's through some sort of medium, and people are using that to create like a whole brand for themselves, or they're just using it to, you know, post things that are personal, but at least it's an outlet for people. I think it's pretty
yeah.
cool in that sense.
And I think that's like the biggest thing is like having allowing people to have an outlet in some kind of way. Some people have outlets with, you know, exercise. Some people have outlets with, you know, reading or writing or, you know, doing art and things like that. And social media is definitely something that is put on that list. And I think put on the list for a lot of people where it's like, you know, like maybe they share their art online or they share their writings online or they create communities within these social networks that share these same ideas. And I think it's actually really interesting just social media. When I thought about this topic, I essentially just thought about Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, things like that. But social media pervades so many more areas of, you know, the way that we interact, and I think that it's kind of amazing, like all the sources of what social media is considered, where all these places where we can come together, share ideas, or even you know, I guess the pros and the cons of what social media can entail, but the different types of social media that they've listed were social networks. So like that's the ones that we're commonly known of, like Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. There's media sharing like YouTube and Pinterest, where people can just like post things or blog things, video blogging or sharing ideas and comments. There's blogs and forums, which I guess is kind of different than YouTube, but I guess YouTube is called like vlogging, like
Yeah,
video
video
blogging.
blogging. Yeah.
Um, but I guess blogs and forums. You know, I've actually heard about blogs in a long time. Like when MySpace was out, like I think that's when I heard more about blogs. Like people have like blog pages and they're like, hey, follow my blog. But I guess maybe I'm just not into blogs. But maybe I
It
guess they're still going.
actually it reminds me of Zanga, which is like way back when. It's like a throwback. It was before MySpace, and it was essentially like you could make and design your own kind of blog page, or almost like your own website, similar to everything that you see now, like where you can make your background color or like your text and font differently. And like MySpace was cool because you could have a song, I remember that, or you could even
Yeah.
have a playlist back in the day.
Yep.
But you could also do that with Zanga. So I feel like, I mean, that was then. But nowadays, I think the most of the time I see people with cooking blogs or like recipes or like travel blogs when they're giving ideas of where you want to go. Like if it's your first time going to Thailand, then you're like, oh, and then it pops up and you just end up
Hmm.
reading about this person.
That makes sense.
Yeah. Fitness blogs, I think. Things like that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I actually have come across cooking blogs. Like if I'm looking for a recipe, and it's like, you know, you click on one of the blog pages, and then there's just like this person's life story
Oh my
before they
God,
actually
I
get to the
know.
recipe. And I'm like, dude, what? Can't you just tell me what
Yeah,
ingredients I need
I
to
know.
make this food?
Yeah, I'm
So it all
always looking.
started when I was 7 years old. The smell of grandma's cookies. It's like I don't know what are you talking about?
And there's a
Um,
picture, and you're like, oh,
yeah.
wow. Yeah.
But yeah, so so yeah, I guess I have come across blogs and stuff, but so I guess those are a lot more specified forms of things, and then there are things like social reviews, like Airbnb and what's food
Yelp.
ones, Yelp. That's the big one that I completely forgot. But yeah, ways in which people do that, and I think that, you know, like in all these different ways, there are pros and cons of that you know, like I guess we're gonna discuss throughout the rest of this episode. But you know, like I think it's important for us to realize how evasive this is within our lives, how in intensely wound in, you know, like this is within us. And even people that don't have social media are kind of still, this is still in their face, you know, like whether it's like
Mm,
a business that has, you know, add us on Facebook or follow us on Twitter or doing something like that. Like even people that don't have these social medias are still being kind of like put in a position where they're kind of, it's in their face. And you know, there's something about like logos and how it sublimates our consciousness. And with that just being, you know, a very real thing, you know, like how much of the way that we interact and the people that choose to have social media versus not have social media and then go back to social media, like how much is that through these sublimated messages that are like constantly all around us, like making us feel as though the world around us is revolving around the social media. And I think it's not necessarily the case, because like we are the ones that provide that, we are the ones that like create that in order for social media to be as prevalent as it is and as popular as it is. So it's like, how is it that like as it's like growing so rapidly and moving in this place, like how is it influencing us as people? Is it kind of turning its back to where like it was something that we were utilizing and now it's utilizing us? Or, you know, like it's just like that. I mean, is what do you think? You know, like this is something that like I think about a lot. Like it's moving so fast and it's growing so fast. What ways is it influencing us? And like what ways do you feel like it's influencing us?
definitely. I was just thinking about what you were saying just like 2 seconds ago, and I was thinking about how people understand the way humans think. So when it comes to logos and marketing, it's just so psychological, where we are looking at certain colors, or if it's words or how they sound or how it looks, which is crazy. And nowadays it's like the way we think with our attention spans, how it's like this faster pace internet technological kind of flow is happening in since, you know, since whenever it came out. I feel like it's just getting faster and faster. So people are looking for ways to get our attention. So I feel like it's kind of, you know, I used to be like really, I guess, not so attracted to the idea of when people are like, oh, look at my, you know, my Instagram, and this is me, and this is
Mm-hmm.
my Facebook, and this is my Twitter, or whatever. But now I'm understanding that because of how many people there are in the world, and if you really want to put yourself out there, you're kind of like, hey, look at me. And you're just like, and
Mm-hmm.
it's so similar to advertising, but I think we see it so differently when it comes to personal people. Like we assume it with certain companies, and we see it with, you know, Amazon or whatever, Walmart, whatever. We kind of just assume and we expect to see that kind of stuff. But I think when it comes to people, it kind of raises a different kind of reaction depending on who you are. But I think in terms of influence and the way it's going, I think it could be a huge problem. The reason is that I don't know if it's true or not, but I did hear that when people go on social media, Facebook, Instagram, it's kind of like this like dopamine rush. Like they get
Mm-hmm.
this boost of, you know, actual biological hormones that make them happier when they're using it. But it becomes addicting, and then they're not really getting face to face connection. They're not really getting meaningful connections. And a lot of times it could be even, you know, internet bullying or trolling. So I think that it could be a huge problem. But I'm hopeful because I do think that when we're mindful of it and we can set our own healthy boundaries within ourselves to notice, oh, okay, actually, I just went from spending 5 minutes on my phone to 3 hours
Yeah.
during this quarantine or whatever, then, you know, that can raise some questions and some self reflection. So, you know, and that's hard. So I think that we kind of have to fight the evil forces with that one.
Yeah,
So, yeah.
it's like it seems like something that's somewhat unavoidable in a way, and I think you brought up a few good points where first you spoke about just like the comparison of how businesses use it versus how just people use it, but and I think that that's a very good point because the biggest thing with social media and the biggest benefit in social media for businesses is the fact that it's able to selectively target audiences. It's able to better find its market. It's able to better find the people that are going to best resonate with the product and best, like most likely buy the product. And I mean, we know that we have conversations sometimes with friends or we search certain items or something and then we look on our Facebook page and hey, like we see that there, and that's because like obviously social medias have these contracts with third parties and like allow them to take data from these parties
Mm-hmm.
to essentially culminate a more precise
Algorithm.
experience, exactly, a more precise algorithm for you to see the things that you're going to more resonate with, see the things that you're going to be more attracted to. And it seems as though it's that idea of targeting a certain audience has pervaded outside of the business domain, and now it's in that personal domain where if people again are moving towards trying to get more followers, even trying to be relevant on the social media pages, it seems as though there's also a need to selectivize an audience and target an audience, and that's just something as I even created the Instagram page for this podcast and wanted to start moving towards following people that were advocating for towards mental health and like moving towards like things that are more beneficial for like self growth and self development. I found that, you know, in researching these things, they were saying, you know, essentially hone in on an idea, hone in on a theme, hone in on a niche, and like have that be where you're guiding people because it's so directive in the way that social media is moving in. And I feel like that's so odd because as humans we don't move that way. Like we're directed in our intentions and the goals that we want to set, but our entire personality, our entire person isn't that direction, isn't that place, and
Mm-hmm.
that's kind of like where I feel as though social media is kind of limiting the amount of who we are and the amount of how much we can express of who we are in these domains because of the fact that it's there's so much of a need for there to be the specific type of idea or look or image that you're posting on social media. I mean,
Yeah.
it seems so strange.
That's a great point because, us as people are definitely going to have more than one, preference or things that we like to do. And so I think when you're talking about that, I think a lot of it comes down to people who want followers and want to appear a certain way in order to get that and market themselves. But like you're saying, I think it is kind of odd because we're so much more complex than that.
Mm-hmm.
And who are we and how authentic can we really be if we come out and say, oh, yeah, I am all about sports, for example. I'm only going to post photos of me, participating in sports. And it's like,
Mm-hmm.
that is such a small part of who
Yeah.
that person is. And yet, we still glorify those kinds of things, like
Mm-hmm.
whether it's sports or, just how somebody looks, like superficial, super
It's
superficial.
very
Yeah. So
um
that's a really good
and
point.
and I guess like um on one side of that, you know, like we wouldn't create something so directive in that way or start moving in that mold if we didn't get some kind of benefit from it, if there wasn't something that came out of it. So I mean, although there are caveats to the pros that are experienced from social media, I think there are maybe some good things that I mean there has to be an essence of good things that are within this field, this idea of social media that attracts us to it, that continues to have it expand exponentially to make it so that, you know, like people feel as though maybe they're missing out if they, take a break from social media, or like, needing to take breaks from social media. Like it's so
Mm-hmm.
ingrained within our lives that there must be positives to it. And I guess like the main reason I kept Facebook for so long were birthdays. Like it's really good for having information like that in that way, where it's like, like people that you care about, you don't always remember everyone's birthdays, but
Mm-hmm.
you have that on there. There are those moments when in times of crisis where you can say like, I am reporting safe from this hurricane, or like so and so marked themselves safe for this, like shooting or whatever it was. And that's a good, like where people can find out if their family or their loved ones or people that they're connected with that they know are in those faraway areas, they know if they're okay. It's like, these
Yeah.
are amazing pros, and I think just some of the few pros that are present within the social media domain.
Yeah, because we just hear all about the negative things,
Hmm.
most of the time. I think there are definitely some positives that aren't spoken about, and I think one of them that comes to mind is just like you're saying, connecting with people that you wouldn't maybe see on a day-to-day
Hmm.
basis, or that are far away, or maybe you connect with somebody just based on knowing a mutual friend, or just something that, like a Facebook group that you joined, or there is definitely a sense of community there, where I think that people that lack that maybe in their own hometowns or where they're from can actually meet other people that are like-minded and
Hmm.
hopefully gain some connections that way.
Oh yeah. And that's another big thing, is like there is so much negativity that can be put on social media, but there's also so much support that can be gained on social media. People create entire groups and like pages for, a culmination of like people with anxiety or people that are struggling with different
Mm-hmm.
things in their lives. And this is something so amazing, where it's like I think I see the the idea, like the idealistic way of how social media was meant to go about, and that's to create this kind of virtual community of endless people, where in this world where we're constantly becoming more individualized, we're becoming more of like nuclear type of families that are moving away from extended family and things like that, and we're starting to create family based on like either through marriage or social connections that we like say, oh, like this is like my brother, or this is my sister, or whatever it is, and we create those. But at the same time, it's like in that creation we're also limiting ourselves by removing ourselves from the people that we care about, the people that we love, by trying to start this new venture of our own. So social media does have that ability to allow us to not only connect with family members, but to create a community where it's like, if you're brand new in an area, you can like look on Facebook and say things to do in my area, and like see certain events happening. If you're interested in art, you can see like maybe certain like sip and paint things that are happening. And
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
it seems as though
Definitely.
like there are so many opportunities for connection.
Yeah. Like, what, I don't think 30 years ago we could talk to somebody across the globe like we can now.
Yeah,
And that's,
nonetheless, even a town over.
yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
And that is partly because of technology, but I think social media in general is really a huge medium for making those connections and kind of stepping outside of what you normally do and know to other worlds or other places. And learning, I think, is huge too. I think there's a whole avenue of areas where people have been able to learn about things that they're interested in from social
Mhm.
media, or even the news. Like, it's kind of surprising how many, I think, I mean, how many of us millennials, I don't want to generalize, but I think a lot of people that I know don't always just tune in to read the newspaper, or they don't
Yeah.
consistently look at, news channels, or, different sites that, generate the news. So I think social media is huge. There's always, I guess, on the other side of that, there's always trying to decipher if that information is
Yeah.
true or not.
You got some Facebook news. You never know if it's true or not.
You're right. But I think nonetheless, you can definitely learn about stuff. I'm a huge follower of like, my political preference, candidates and different people across the world that I just want to know about. And it's so much easier on social media.
It does open those doors up to like really expanding how much is in your environment. And I think that before before technology, again 30 years ago, the way that people did that was by traveling. They had to really like physically move and get out of their area to find someone in another country to be like pen pals with. And like, is that the right word, like when they write to each other?
Yeah.
You Yeah, pen pals. I don't know why I think that's like a jail term, like if you're in jail, like that's like you write to someone that's in jail. I don't know, um, but yeah, like people had to physically travel to some place, meet people and say, hey, like this is my address, send me a letter, or this is my phone number, give me a phone call, because I guess phones were available then, but not cell phones. So I guess the person kind of had to be home in order for them to really connect. But
Yeah.
so yeah, there's so much, and you touched on a few of these, like just easing loneliness, like people that may normally be by themselves and not really know how to connect, or even those just like introverts. Like I definitely consider myself an introvert to some degree, where it's like I don't necessarily always want to socialize, but I also do want to socialize on some level. So it kind of
Mm,
gives introverts that level of um, ability to where it's like they can socialize to their extent and then like kind of go back to their
recharge.
introvertedness or whatever it is. Um and that's like really amazing. And I think that like those are, I think that's like the basis of how social media is continuing to spread and and be such a powerful force. Yet there are all these detriments that we also start to see as we kind of think more about it. Like all these positives are amazing things, but how often are we recognizing these things? I mean, these are things that like we have to really think about those positive things. But when we think about social media, a lot of times we're thinking about things like, cyberbullying, like, trolling and things that like are more negative to us, more harmful to our person, like our personal psyche and like who we are, than it is for anything else. And I think that that's kind of where this downfall is, and we're maybe a shift of how we're utilizing and what we're recognizing on social media can be maybe.
Yeah,
um
I definitely think so. I would say though, in contrast, I do think there are some elements of social media that we all should be aware of.
mhm.
And one thing that comes to mind is really that lack of face to face connection.
Yep.
And I think of a couple different things. Like while you were talking, I was kind of reminded of how, yeah, we can see what our friends are doing in our family. And oftentimes, I feel like how you were saying back in the day when you needed to be home with a home phone for somebody to contact you, I think these days it's interesting because we have so much connection to where you can actually run into someone and you're like, and then you haven't seen them in years, but yet you feel like you've already gotten the summary of what they've been doing. You're like, oh, cool, you just got married, and oh, it looks like
Yeah.
your wife's pregnant, and yeah, like, cool, like, have a good day. But it's
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
no, you haven't seen me, I haven't seen you in 5 years. And it's almost like, this element of like how we can all be super flaky because it's like, yeah, we'll connect, but because it's almost like you see them all the time, but you don't
Mhm.
really see them. That's something I thought about, but
I
not
think
to be
that's
like the Debbie Downer on the
no,
situation. But I
I
think,
think that's like it kind of exactly what, like what I'm kind of going at is like um there is this lack of this face-to-face communication, which makes that in-person communication kind of blunted in a way, where it's like you're not saying, "Hey, what's been new?" Like, like you're not gonna hear this person speak about, "Yeah, I just got engaged and we got a new puppy and like we're fixing the house up," because you've seen pictures of the house renovations, you've seen the new puppy, and like you're seeing all these things, and it's kind of like it's really great, that you're still kind of knowledgeable about this person's lives, but the way that we connect as people is through this that interaction, that like that time that's spent, and it's not like the time of just like absorbing and taking in information. It's like the experience of being with this person and having that conversation and sharing those experiences, and having that meaningful time. And that's something I think now in this quarantine time we're going to recognize a lot more, and a lot of people are already bringing it up, where it's just not enough. Like this way of connecting. I mean, they can have thousands of likes, they can have, like hundreds of comments, but it's not enough. It's not enough, because that face-to-face communication is something so essential. And it's kind of unfortunate that we need a time of crisis like this in order for us to realize it. But I feel like after this, I think we should be more aware of, just like, I don't want to say should, because like we do whatever you want, but allow this time to like give us perspective on what it means to actually connect with people. And as we go back into the world, and merge back in and get closer than 6 feet to each other, realize how meaningful and amazing that connection is, and what comes out of it, like the joy that you feel and the connection that you feel when you finally get to hug somebody that you haven't hugged in a long time, when you finally get to like speak face to face and like share time with these people. I think that is going to be so, it's going to be very dawning of that knowledge that, wow, this is what we need, this is what is necessary, because this way of social media, it's doing things that like, that's giving us connection, but it's not a true connection that we need. And there are so many things that are coming out of this, where people are, having insecurities within themselves, like I mentioned earlier, increased depression, anxiety, like just fear that's being arisen out of these domains, because like we're just taking in information, and we're not having any of those meaningful connections that are bringing us, support, and bringing us love, and bringing us like security, and knowing that everything's going to be all right. And sometimes we don't need the words for people to say like everything's going to be all right. Sometimes it's just the presence of someone else. And I think now, when people don't have that presence of other people that they can go to, and it's only this online domain, then we're going to start seeing more and more people falling victim to these like that lack of human contact, like you were speaking about. It
Yeah,
really is something
definitely.
so.
And needing validation from
Mhm.
social media, like how that's such an unhealthy situation, where people go on, Facebook or Instagram or whatever it is, and they want people to like what they're saying, and they seek validation from that. And when they don't receive it, it's very toxic to their mental health. Or, they're comparing themselves to somebody who seemingly has all of the things worked out in their life, and it can only, create envy or sadness, or just, if they have lack of self-esteem, they're not realizing that it's within themselves, that they have everything that they could ever need. But we start to look outside of ourselves, and we start to
Yeah.
see materialism, that it will hopefully make us happy, or once I get that, then I'll be happy, or whatever it may be. And that's a very toxic cycle. I know personally, it's like, I sometimes catch myself where I'm like, oh, I really, really want this. And once I get that, like, I'm going to be so stoked. Like, I'll be able to X, Y, and Z. And it's like, no, just be happy with where you're at right now. Like, what you have is enough. Like, count your blessings. And I think, like you're saying, people are definitely going to hopefully be aware of the things that they do have right now. During all of this, it's a great time to realize, yeah, I can't be even 6 foot 6 feet away from somebody I love. Or you know or hopefully they realize, wow, I have a roof over my head, I have, food, I have this, instead of, there is that whole element of like, oh, I need to hoard toilet paper right now. But I think hopefully also people are understanding, like, oh my God, like, I have this, I'm so grateful to be, in this space, or to be able to work. Like, that's
Mm-hmm.
huge. If for a lot of people, it's like, wow, like, since when is working all the
Yeah.
time being like glorified? It's like,
Mm-hmm.
wow, I can actually work. People are actually
Mm-hmm.
thinking like during this time, or maybe not, depending on what you're doing, you're putting yourself at risk. But yeah, it's a lot to think about. Sorry, I got I got off track there, but
No, 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 no. I think it, and something that I thought about as you were speaking. It's I do think that there is that strange idea of constantly comparing ourselves to someone else to kind of validate our lives or to create meaning in our lives. And something that you invited me to do was this 21-day meditation challenge, Deepak Chopra, where it one of the meditation days was he was speaking about how we have this feeling of loss or absence in our lives, and if we reflect deeply on that loss and absence, or that feeling as though we don't have enough or don't have something, if we keep looking deeper, we find that a lot of times we don't have enough. That idea of having enough is coming from outside of us. It's coming from us comparing ourselves to other people. And something that like I did when I would speak to clients is just kind of in the manifestation of certain ideas or dreams or things that they want to accomplish, is the idea of if no one was around to tell you how to be, how to act, or what to do, like what would you do? Like what would you want to do? And the idea of that question is to eliminate those boundaries that we don't even recognize are there, but they're built so much because of what's being put in our face, what's being fed to us as the idealistic way that we should be living, and those boundaries set us up and put us in this cage where it's like we can't break out of that, and we only see the walls of that cave and we don't see anything outside of that. But once we kind of remove that veil that we didn't even notice was there because it was placed kind of insidiously, like it's removed, and now the world has so many possibilities, and then at that moment we can start recognizing, wow, yes, I do have a roof over my head. I'm not making money right now, but I am spending time with my family. Like whatever it is that starts coming about as you start to remove that comparison that we're having, constantly comparing things to other people. Oh, I'm not an essential worker. Oh, you're an essential worker. Like there's so many people making jokes about that. And I mean, sometimes it's, like it's obviously funny to laugh about it, but in the context of it, if you're like breaking down that context, that's someone saying like, I have this and you're not this, and people that are considered non-essential workers that want to work and want to provide for their family or do the things that they want to do aren't able to, and now they're feeling as though uh, I'm not an essential worker. Now I mean, like whatever kind of psychological things come along with that in your like in your own personal way. There's so many. It's just like it comes out of that comparison, and it's not doing us any good because it just brings us down.
yeah, it's labels. It's labels that we're putting on
Exactly.
ourselves, it's limitations. And then it's like fear based, where we're so hard on ourselves. And I think we don't even realize it sometimes, where we're just the mental narrative that goes on
Hmm.
in our heads. It's just so bad sometimes. And most of the time, or not most of the time, but a lot of the time, those are just things that have been, like you're saying, insidiously placed there, and we
Hmm.
don't even pick up on it. It takes a lot to be able to get to that point, which I highly recommend for those of you who are listening. If you want to do a meditation challenge, definitely check out Deepak Chopra. His voice is so calming, and he's
It is.
awesome. Because, I mean, just sitting still with completely nothing in your mind, just focusing on your breath, is so hard, especially in these times where everything, your mind is racing. You're thinking about 100 things. Like, how am I going to get food on the table? How am I going to pay my bills? What am I going to do? Am I going to get sick? I think it's definitely a great practice, if any, just to sit down and breathe, because
Yeah.
there's so much power in your breath. But I forgot what I was saying because I just went off on a I
No,
derailed the
that's I.
conversation again.
You actually were saying perfectly on topic, like you like before. And I mean, yeah, and that kind of meditation is also something that can, or even, I mean, like I think meditation is something that is so kind of misconstrued in this way to where again like people may feel as though it's boxed into a certain category, but meditation is, I mean, like it can be in so many different forms. I mean, like dance can be
Mm-hmm.
meditative, you know, art can be meditative, like whatever gets you to a mindset that kind of puts you at ease, puts you at comfort, you know. And sometimes that's, you know, completely shutting the mind off to allow yourself to rest for a moment, or maybe it's, you know, removing your mindset from a different place and relocating it to a different place, like focusing on writing or on your art or something. But just taking that time to do that thing, it gets you away from this social media, this thing that like can essentially start causing this negative loop. Like Ali, you mentioned this earlier. This negative feedback loop is something that is so real. And it also, you mentioned like the endorphins that like go off from going on social media. That is also something that's very real, and it goes into, I mean, just this idea of Facebook depression, and it's not like a real DSM diagnosis, but it's something that's starting to arise where people are realizing the differences between how people are interacting online and the people, like you were saying, the people that are being idealized, the people that other people are comparing themselves to. Those are people that generally have, or are said to have higher self-esteem and kind of like more of that positive energy
Reinforcement.
towards them. They're a little bit more well adjusted in certain ways, and that allows them to post things that are kind of things of them going by a beach or like just smiling, and you know, like they get a bunch of likes, and those likes allow them to gain more positivity, so they just like want to continue to redo that same behavior. So now there's this trend of, you know, maybe someone posts something up and then it doesn't get a lot of likes, so they delete it, and they realize like if they post something else that was in their similar content, then it's going to get a lot of likes. And maybe that's why personal profiles are starting to become so directed, because people are realizing, hey, if I post this stuff, I'm getting a lot of likes, so I'm going to keep posting stuff like this in order to keep getting a lot of likes. And
Yeah.
I mean, that could be it, but it's really all speculation because I'm not a data analysis or anything. But um,
Definitely. That could be like the evolution of where this whole social media branding yourself kind of element is going, you know. We want to target certain people. We want to, you know, just like all of the companies that we surround ourselves and buy from, you know, they want to
yeah,
target us. They want to know what we like. We want to, you know, be likable. It's all very similar.
and
Um,
then now we're just taking those traits into our personal lives, you know.
yeah, yeah.
Um, And I guess on the opposite end of that positive feedback loop with individuals that are maybe more well adjusted or have more positive self esteem, there's that opposite end where there are individuals that are less well adjusted. There are individuals that kind of have this more negative cycle that's going on, and it's not necessarily something that's intentional. And I don't mean to say positive self-esteem and negative self-esteem as connotations towards anything that's good or bad, because there are people that may seem more well-adjusted that are also dealing with a lot of heavy shit, and there are also people that are maybe less well-adjusted that can get past and have gotten past amazing and like amazing things that allow them to be very resilient. But these are just like the different cycles that are noticed between the different people that experience social media and interact with social media. But on that other side is the on the lesser well-adjusted side, there are individuals that, you know, like have anxiety, have depression, have loneliness, that they're going to social media to alleviate those things and to try to find connection in those ways. Yet they get negativity back at them, whether it's cyberbullying, or they don't get a lot of likes, or they don't get or they have that FOMO, that kind of that idea of, again, comparing themselves to other people, like my life isn't as good because I'm not at the beach right now, or I'm not that great because, you know, like I can't eat at this restaurant or whatever it is. But that constant comparison brings that person that went online to find that connection to not only feel worse after leaving that social media domain, but they have nowhere else to go to alleviate that. So they go back to social media and hope
Mm-hmm.
that like it's going to be different that next time, but it turns into this negative cycle. But I mean, and it's so unfortunate that like there are those two ends of it, but I've seen it, I've seen it, happen with individuals that, kind of speak about very serious things that they're dealing with and not getting like a lot of connection off of it. Yet there are people that are saying, hey, I got like a new puppy, here's a picture, that's getting like so much more attention. And it's like so unfortunate because it's very much affecting these individuals in this way, and studies are starting to show this. And I think that that's kind of where the biggest problem with social media is happening, is the people that are falling between the cracks, the people that aren't always getting that positive end of things from social media that many people get. And I guess kind of going into that, I think the most at risk age group are teenagers, because teenagers are surrounded by this constantly. This is their life. This is what were brought up in. I mean, like, it's the year
Yeah.
2020 right now. So there are individuals that are like well into adulthood who had social media or some kind of technology and social domain in front of them in their lives from the moment that they were born. And that is something, it's so different from anyone that's been born like in the 90s or before. Like we didn't have that.
That's so true. I mean, like, they're probably like, what's VHS or what's an iPod? And we're just like, dang.
Glorified coasters now.
Yeah. Or I don't even know. CDs are still a thing, but
Yeah,
yeah, I
but
think
even then
it's,
it's like
yeah, exactly. It's like, yeah, they're definitely
it's
being raised on it. And I think it's troublesome. I'm just wondering, what kind of outcome that kind of presents, where, what social media is doing for them. And if we knew some sort of data that would tell us, in
yeah.
comparison,
And I mean, that's also like just something that is so, I mean, there are so many studies looking at social media, but also it's like, how exactly are these studies going about, and what populations are they taking into account? Because there are people in social media that are in different countries, in different places, and in different socioeconomic status, like socioeconomic places that it doesn't relate to all of them. So is this, I mean, because unfortunately with a lot of research, and you'll find this if you are a researcher, is that there are a lot of research, lots of research on medications and studies and different things, but on populations that don't speak to the general demographic. Usually it's middle class white males. So this doesn't speak to a lot of females. It doesn't speak to a lot of people that are younger or older or of different ethnicities or religion backgrounds and things like that. And these are all things that need to be taken into consideration. So although there are some studies on how social media is influencing teens and otherwise, it's not something that's like it's not something that there's enough of, especially seeing the increasing in suicide rate, the increase in self-harm, and the I mean, just like these negative attributes that are happening in teenagers, like in even younger, like these individuals that, like, when we were teens, like, we didn't have to deal with that. Like, if we had situations at school, then like we got to go home, and we had friends, and like wherever we lived, that like was around us, and we didn't have to deal with that. But now teens are growing up in these areas where not only are they being bullied in school or whatever it is, or taunted, or rumors are spreading or whatever in school, now they have to go home, and it's on social media, and friends of friends are seeing it, friends of family are seeing it, and it's so much more pervasive, and it's all encompassing. And if, like we were speaking about earlier, if our world is starting to be consumed by social media, then would it not seem apparent to teens who don't really have a large conception of the world at that age? Would it not seem very aware, or like very obvious, that like for them this is their entire world? Like, if right now social media is consuming our world, and like it's so evasive, teens, like, rumors are spreading on social media, and it's so widespread and so abundant, like, this is what their world is. This is what they see the world as, and they don't see anything outside of it. They don't see anything outside of their situation. And not to mention, like, hormones and things like that, like the insecurities that just come about from being a teenager. It's like
yeah,
there's
kids can
so
be
much that, like,
mean.
yeah, and it's like it's so unfortunate, but this is the world that teens are living in right now.
Yeah, yeah, and it's honestly, it's like we're lucky if we have friends to play with at home at the end
Yeah,
of the day when we're kids,
exactly.
or we're lucky to be able to come home to a stable environment at home. So I mean, if you
Yeah,
think about
exactly.
all of the people and all of the children and teens who are facing, bullying or whatever it may be, groomers, just kids being kids, like every kid's gone through it. We're all just, picking on each other and doing stuff like that. But then not not even having, you know, a healthy environment to come home to,
Hmm.
and that's a whole nother element that adds upon that, and it's
Yeah.
that social media aspect even just is icing on the cake because they'll probably, if that's their life, they're logging on and they're looking and they're seeing everybody else who's having a quote unquote better life or having more
Yeah.
fun or doing this or that. And so that is a slippery slope. And it saddens me to think about that because I think it's so important that we try to be as authentic as we can. But I think, I don't know if it's 100% true now, but I did read a statistic where teens, I guess young teens, ages 18 to I guess 21, so it wouldn't be a teen anymore, but they were surveyed and it was awkward for them they thought it was awkward to speak on the phone,
Hmm.
whereas texting is everything. And that is
Well, I'm
another
the same way.
layer. Huh? You're really
That's what I'm actually the same way. Yeah. Like, send me
introvert.
smoke signals before trying to give me a phone call. I'd rather.
Oh, really? I called you like three
Yeah.
times today.
You
Okay.
did. I mean, there are some people I can definitely like be on the phone with, but there's sometimes I'm just like, can you text me?
Yeah, yeah, and I get it, and I get it, but that again, it's
But
like
yeah.
that leaves so
Hmm.
much more space for miscommunication
Oh
or,
yeah.
yeah, or just not really getting that, like, I guess any type of energy. Like you're not hearing the tone of voice, you're not picking up
Yeah.
on social cues, you're not, it's just like again isolating in a sense. You're like, oh, does that person think this? You could read a text and interpret it like 20 different ways.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean,
So
text messaging is crazy, but yeah, definitely, I definitely see that. So, I mean, you said that that's so the teens were more reluctant to speak on the phone than texting.
yeah, they thought it was awkward.
Interesting. And see, I hear that, and I think that that kind of just speaks to like how much more disconnected like people are maybe becoming in that way. Because I remember before texting was a big thing. I remember I used to have phone calls with friends, and we would do like three-way phone calling. Like I
Yeah.
it that was the thing, and it was like I would talk for hours on the phone, and like
Mhm.
that was just how that kind of went down. But for people to feel less, I mean, even for me to realize that like I don't want to talk on the phone as much, rather than texting, I think maybe that also does speak to how this is influencing our lives in these like minuscule ways. But I mean, also there's I guess like a convenience factor of like being able to respond when you want to rather than but that's
Exactly.
neither here nor there. But I guess for teens like that's I think that that connection is something that is so needed, especially given the fact that like this is essentially a hostile environment, and not only thinking about the teens that are getting the negative benefits from this, but the teens that are actually flourishing on social media. It's like in order for them to do that, they're abiding by these ideals that social media has shaped, which is posting these types of pictures, saying these types of things, and it's like now are we molding kids to fit into this platform to start moving in these ways of kind of selectively targeting things, selectively liking things, selectively speaking to certain people, blocking people that you're seeing and encountering every day. I mean, like, think about teens. Like, if you're a teenager in your friend group or something like that, and then all your friends just like block you all at the same time, like, can you imagine that?
Oh
That's like
man.
a worse case scenario than like getting the cold shoulder from friends or something. It's like now, like, they don't speak to you at school. Now they're not speaking to you like in on the social media domain. And I think it's shaping youth in like a very interesting way. And I love the teens that are getting like giving support. I know so many like people that are like, yeah, there's this thing called I forgot what it is, but it essentially, oops, just hit the microphone. It essentially finds individuals, like young individuals that are doing amazing things in their community, whether it's like doing community projects or like creating things to help like homeless and things like that. And I know that there are a lot of teams that are doing good and kind of like pervading past this idea of comparing themselves to others. But there's so many teams that are, and kind of just to start closing this out, is just a statistic that I found was that teens that spend 5 or more hours a day per week on social media are 71% more likely to have at least one risk factor for suicide compared to teens that spend only 1 hour on social media per day a week. And I mean that seems kind of startling, but again, like given the intensity of how this domain can be for teens, I think that's something that makes a lot of sense. But then again, the same study showed that just 2 or more hours increased the likelihood of having a risk factor for suicide. So it was just 1 more hour outside of 1 hour, and I think that is something that's so crazy, where it's like just 2 hours on social media. That means that throughout your entire day, just 2 hours of social media. And I mean, like, that's very feasible, but for maybe even in this time now where people aren't in school, people may not be working, social media is going to be very constant in teens' lives, and maybe this is going to be their entire world, you know? So, it's definitely like something that is startling, and something that we should all take into consideration as we're looking at social media. And that's kind of what this entire episode is like essentially about, is like speaking about social media in that way of how is it influencing us, and how can we move towards allowing it to be that space that kind of encapsulates more of those pros than the cons. And I think that comes to, us first recognizing when social media is influencing us in a negative way, because how can we do anything about it? How can we change what's happening if we don't even recognize the parts of us that are getting pulled into this social media domain that's advocating or promoting this type of environment. And yeah, so I guess we'll just close it out with just a few of the ways that you can realize that these are influencing you, or social media is influencing you. And obviously, just like the more time you're spending online, increasing in cyberbullying, if you're getting cyberbullied a lot, distracting, if you're not able to be present in your own environment. Allie, like you spoke about earlier, comparing yourself to others. And I think that's the big thing. Because as you said, it's like it's so unfortunate that we're comparing ourselves to others, and it kind of goes into these other things where it's like we're comparing ourselves to others, so we're spending more time on social media trying to maybe fit into this mold. We're getting bullied if we try to put our content out there, and we get this negative backlash, and it's kind of like this weird domain that we're living in. So as we start noticing that we're being affected more by it, where our anxiety is increasing, our depression is increasing, we don't have time to reflect, and like we're losing out on sleep because of these things. Like, as these things are starting to present themselves, I think it's important for us to kind of like wind it back and be like, hey, how much of this is actually helping me versus how much of this is hurting me. And as we spoke about earlier, Facebook and other social medias can create an environment, a community that is supportive of you. But as long as you're staying connected to people that are going to be negative to you, then that's what's going to be perpetuated. So if you're going to be on social media and you're having these negative downfalls of it, I mean, I think that part of kind of ameliorating a lot of those situations is to selectivize like who you're surrounding yourself with, who you're following. Like if you want more connection, there are many groups that are online that will welcome you and allow you to like kind of speak your mind and your thoughts, and have so many people support you. There are people that that can, I mean, yeah, it's like there are just so many possibilities of
Yeah, and I want to say, trust me, whoever is listening to this, you are so cool just the way you are. And I
perfect
think
the way you are.
you're perfect. Yes, that's not an original line at all, but I think it's so true because I think part of that, the reason we get sucked into that is because this feeling of inadequacy. And of course, that can come from social media and comparing ourselves, but I think we have to return back to what makes us happy and finding other outlets. And so it might be old school, it might be lame. You could journaling has been huge for me lately, in these times when I'm, the whole shelter in place thing has brought up so many emotions that I
Oh
have
yeah.
just been trying to work through myself. So journaling is a great thing. Artwork, you could do, making music. You could do so much instead of sitting or laying down on your phone scrolling through
Mm,
nonsense. And on top of that, if you can't sleep, it's like that blue light that comes from your phone, it's like that's not good for our health anyways.
oh yeah.
So but I will say YouTube has some really great workout videos, so kind of advocating and not advocating for social media at the same time. But if you're going to watch something, at least, get your body moving, like move your body, walk outside. Nature is healing.
As long
Zoom.
as you're not like in a populated area, you know.
Right. You're
Like
6 feet away.
yeah.
You're just, well, if you just step outside and like feel some sunshine on
Oh
you,
yeah.
if there is sunshine, or even like if you're looking, out a window even, and you're just like looking at a bird in a tree, like,
Yeah.
I mean, who knows? But I think just the little things sometimes goes such a long way. So that would be my message to anyone listening is like, who cares what you post if you're going to stick on social media and you don't want to break from it? Just own it, and who cares who likes it? Who cares who doesn't? You're awesome the way you are, and don't forget that. But also notice if you are spending, huge amounts of time on your phone, which you can actually check if you have an iPhone. I know that there's like settings and you can go into your apps and you can see your usage and how
Mm.
long you actually spend on those apps. So that's kind of a cool thing to check out. But if you are spending a lot of time, just take a little break.
Yeah.
Especially now, we have so much time. Everybody has the same 24 hours in a day. Think about what you can do and change up your life.
Yeah, I mean, even if that just means, setting 5 minutes aside for yourself and giving yourself that space. Sometimes you can just like create a space where whether it's like you're just gonna make an excuse to go to the bathroom for 5 minutes and turn on the water and just listen to that, or
Don't
maybe
waste too much
find
water,
or
though.
find
I'm
a
just
place
kidding.
that no one goes in the house and just like kind of set up a little dojo there and have your time, but whatever you need. And again, if you are just like on social media, like love what you post, like don't feel remorse for it, because you are an amazing person, and you have a lot to offer, and
So much to offer.
it's not up to other people to decide that for you. So if there are people that are negative against you, utilize that block button, because it's there. And if it offends people, then it offends them, but maybe their comment offended first. So at the end of the day, it's like, utilize the block button, follow people that are going to support you, um, join groups that are going to give you that support that you need if you're going to be on social media, and doing that. And if you do need to step away, then there are so many options, and maybe you have to go on a social media platform like YouTube in order to get some yoga in, or even just like some drawing or whatever hobby you have. I don't know. Yeah, just anything to get you feeling good and in a good place. But as we are well past an hour, or 10 past an hour into the podcast, I think we're gonna just close it there. And yeah, Ali, thank you so much for joining me
Thank you for having
on
me,
this
of
show.
course. Give me a
I
little plug at the end, like You got to give in your social media links and just be like, if you want to chat, here's.
Are you plugging yourself?
Huh?
Are you
No,
are
I
you
want you
plugging?
to plug me because you've got the podcast. Yeah, give me a
You want me to
plug.
plug you? All this is
Mm-hmm.
gonna be kept in here.
Yeah, it better be.
Uh, no. So Allie, wait, Allie, what do
No,
you
no,
mean?
no. You don't need to put me before you. You gotta like.
Anyone that's
You actually
this
probably
is what
don't
I
even
would say.
know my social media links, so
I
that's
not by heart.
okay.
I
Well,
mean, I
you should.
barely know mine
So.
by heart, but so if you want to contact me for the podcast page, you can go to everything.sunpodcast@gmail.com. You can send those ideas for self-care, and you can send those ideas for topics, and I guess any ideas that you have about things that you're doing to keep time. I don't know. I like emails. Send me an email. You can go to the social media page. Instagram is everything.sunpodcast. Twitter is every sun podcast, and Facebook you can do at every sun podcast, or you can just go to type in the Facebook group everything under the sun, and it's with Ty. So those are the pages, and yeah, I'd
Pew pew
love for you to send me an
pew.
email. And as for Allie, your social media, your
Oh my
plugs for.
gosh. I was totally kidding, but I do think actually now that I'm talking about it, I think if any of you want to do a meditation challenge with me, hit me up, Ali Ali Lobo Lobo. I think you can find me on Facebook or my Instagram might be my full name. It's Alisia Alicia. But yeah, thanks for
Yeah.
tuning in.
And also, I think she is following the Everything Under the Sun podcast Instagram page. So if you go on the Instagram page, you can just go to the friends list and then also just search Allie that way if you're having a hard time finding it in other domains.
I'm sure they'll be
So
searching so hard.
they're going to search vigorously day and night. I need to find Allie. But thank you again, Allie, for being on the show with me.
Thank
And
you for having me.
of course, of course. And to all you listeners, I love you all, and I will see you next time.